All right, welcome to another episode of AIS. This is season 3, and Nate and I are talking all things DIY. So we're talking through, should homeowners DIY? What's the risk of DIY? What's the benefits? And we give some personal testimony on that. And I actually pull up a project P&L and show the downsides of sometimes that happening. So go on YouTube for this episode. I highly recommend it because there is some interactive. I show a couple slide decks, a P&L, and a few other things. But if you get some value out of it, like, share, subscribe, comment, send it to a homeowner who's about to consider a DIY project. And I hope you guys enjoy.
We don't chase savage. Now that ain't the standard. Above industry standards. Built by
All right. What's up, Nate? How's your week going, brother?
What's up, man? Doing well. Doing well.
Good. Well, this is going to be my last podcast from this studio. We're officially moving, so I'm going to be mobile next Tuesday in a remote location, probably on my iPad, and doing a little run and gun. Enjoy the scenery while it lasts.
I like it. I've moved. I'm in the other side of my office because, well, I just haven't taken the time to move everything back over there to the podcast room, but we'll get back over there.
So today, man, producer Dave came up with a great outline, and one of the topics on there was DIY versus pro. And essentially, what are the pros and cons for a homeowner wanting to DIY their project or DIY a portion of their project? And what are the benefits to hiring a professional? And kind of like a risk-benefit analysis, what's the SWOT analysis of this? Like, if there's a strength to a homeowner doing their own project, weaknesses, what opportunities they might have, and then what threats, what risks are associated with DIY. So I don't know. Have you ever had that? You ever have a homeowner give you a call and say, "Hey, I want to build my own deck, but I just kind of want your opinion"?
When they come right out and say it just like that, and are clear on, they're not on one side or the other, I value and appreciate that because immediately I know, all right, perfect. So they're not after me to consider me a solution for them. They're just looking for some professional advice and they need educated. And I don't care to educate for free. So at that point, yeah, I'm not trying to create a funnel or make money off of them, and I can give them enough information to get them through the basics.
A consulting fee for homeowners trying to pick your brain?
No, now I will say this. I have had a client that did pay me to provide them a entire structural layout, drawings, and engineered stamps for a project that he did his own material takeoff on and realized that it was way out of his budget and didn't move forward. So that happened, but yeah.
That's for the design side because we market design build.
Mm-hmm.
And we had it the other way around too. We've had homeowners, like we have a project right now, like a pretty large home addition in Pleasanton. The homeowner's a previous engineer. And so he's a certified engineer. He's also an electrical C10 contractor. He's worked on mechanical. He's owned his own company before. And like he drew all of his plans for his home addition, like totally DIY'd his plans, which actually there's a few stories in that itself. But then we're doing all the work, which I'm always a fan of. In commercial, you're handed a set of plans, but in residential, I like being the author and the publisher, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I like being the author of the plans and publish our own work. I don't like publishing someone else's work and getting, because there's no quality checkpoints and there's no standardized things. So like we get DIY calls all the time, like, "Hey, can I buy materials? Will that make it cheaper?" And it's like, well, no, we're actually a no markup contractor, so like we don't mark up your materials, so there's no benefit. I'm actually going to get it like 20-30% cheaper. Well, we give the cost of project execution, so we charge above the line for the project management. But yeah, if this Diet Pepsi is $2.99, I'm selling it for $2.99. I'm not selling it for $3.99, and I don't have any skin in the game on what people select. But yeah,
Which
most of
to
the time when it hits us, it's like materials. Can we buy our own materials?
Hmm.
And then we have to go through the educational path of why that's usually not a good idea.
Yeah, just what you said would shock a lot of homeowners in the fact that you aren't marking the materials up, because to a savvy business owner or entrepreneur on their own, if they're not in construction and they hear you say that, they're literally, and some other people listening to this may kind of go, wait a minute, what's he doing? How does that work? Well, you know, an explanation of that may help, but beyond that, because if a homeowner is savvy enough to realize that you're putting in products but not charging for it, they're going to question, all right, you're charging me for it somewhere. Where else could you be charging me, right?
Yeah. And we have it above the line in a line item that's explicit. And basically like, okay, so I got this remote, I got this remote, and I got, this remote right here. Now these three remotes, as beautiful as they all are, this one's $10, this one's $500, and this one's $50, right? Well, if the homeowner picks the most expensive one, and I'm making 50% markup on this, so a 33% margin on this remote, and then they make a decision in construction to switch to this remote, that's $10, right? Well, my margin stays flat. So now my margin just reduced, 400x, whatever it is, right? Now I'm only making $5 on the $10 remote when I could have been making, $250 or whatever on this remote. So that's why we eliminate markup, because it makes us agnostic in that process, and it aligns with the core value of ours being an honest broker of solutions, because I have no skin in the game if you pick a Kohler faucet or a Brizzo faucet. The Brizzo might be $1,000 more, but you're not going to hear from me. Like, I'm not going to push you one direction. I'm going to give you an honest assessment based off of previous projects and our experience with this material and how we like to install it and what the pros and cons are. We're just an honest broker of solutions across the table. We have no skin in the game, right? But caveat, like slabs, if it comes down to like porcelain on shower walls or a quartz slab on a shower wall. Well, fabricating and installing porcelain is way riskier than fabricating and installing quartz.
Right.
To the point of like, if it's a 5 slab shower, 2 of those 5 slabs will break, like guaranteed. So we have an adjusted risk factor in our project management, right? Because 2 of them are going to break, right? So we're accounting for that, and we let the homeowner know. But
So,
once again, we're not marking up the slabs. We're
perfect example for the DIYer listening to this that hasn't yet tried to put that many slabs in a shower stall and hasn't found out that he's going to be in it for more than he thinks, because you have contingency built into what you do.
Yeah, I mean, if for a homeowner doing like a DIY shower and slab, like you might think, oh, porcelain, it's just like a tile. I could cut that and I could install that. Like, that's not a big deal. Well, what they don't know is, yeah, like 2 of those 5 slabs are most likely going to break when you're cutting the hole and it's usually niche walls and shower valve walls that break, because it's such a thinner, rigid product. So they don't know that they're going to be drilling for their shower head hole for their drop ear elbow, and it snaps or it sends a hairline fracture, across that weak point to the corner. And they're like, well, shoot, I got to go buy another $2,000 porcelain slab. They get another slab, and then they do it again, right? Because they don't understand that they need a safe board or some sort of backing adhered to the actual porcelain while they're fabricating it to cut down vibration, right? Because that's all it is. It's a thinner, rigid product. Vibration is going to send a stress fracture or just crack it in half. But then this is their first shower. It's their first time installing this large porcelain panels. So those types of things, like there's a stupid tax that I have paid, right, to know how to and how not to do something, whereas a DIYer, like they're going to eat a lot of stupid tax up front.
Dues paid.
Dues have been paid in full, and sometimes on a net 30 basis. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good example. I mean, so you got the homeowner now. They're a little concerned with that phase of the project, but If you're able to even come in there and do part of that for them, and he's comfortable doing the plumbing, the headaches that you could deal with if a homeowner does the plumbing and now it fails, but yet you did your job right. And now it's more of an experience that they get to deal with, not a good one.
So I want to share with you a project. I'm going to pull it up here. Um, I'll share my screen in a second once I get it. A project that started off innocent. What if we provide our own plans? What if we buy our own cabinets? What if we buy our own slabs? And this was a little earlier in my well actually this project happened because it was a summer or it was a winter project. It was a little bit feast and famine. So it was very much I'll have to go to QuickBooks to pull it up. But very feast and famine. And we took the project to keep the guys busy December and January, right? So it was taken out of more need instead of want. And I want to show you what that results in with in profit terms, because it's disgusting. But anyways, keep going.
Yeah, I'm just painting the picture for the experience where the homeowner's taken on part of it, and now the job's done. However, there's a catastrophic failure 6 months later that is correlated to their poor performance, and they want you to come help, right? Hey, I did the plumbing and the plumbing failed, even though you did the stonework, and stonework has to come off to get to the plumbing, right?
Yeah, it's once again that stupid tax. Like not knowing the sequencing of construction is just as important as having the skill set to do it yourself. Because a lot of people put the cart before the horse. They'll get all the way down the road and yeah, have to do a bunch of rework, which is going to cost them time and resources as well. So
Timing's a funny one, actually, as you mentioned that, because when you think timing from a homeowner's perspective and you ask that question, hey, just out of curiosity, when are you hoping to be completed with this project? Most people are going to say, we're in no rush, as soon as you guys have the availability to take care of it. And, once it gets done, it gets done. We don't have any real time expectations or constraints. There's no wedding party in my bathroom. There's no, graduation ceremony. So whenever you're ready. But from a business perspective, I don't have that kind of time. I can only do so many bathrooms and kitchens every year or decks. And I've reverse engineered it to figure out exactly what my capacity is. And I know if I'm on your job for longer than 3 days, that's burning overhead that we don't need to burn. It's costing me money to stand around and wait for things to be completed. So when we really talk timelines, we talk milestone inspections, we talk critical path, we talk general inspections on uh, municipality. But overall, our goal is to try and narrow that down to have as much downtime within the entire production schedule so that our effort and best foot is put forward. And when we walk off the job site, it's done. That's profit. And if you can turn those frequently and you actually can guarantee in sense like say, hey, if I go past 2 days on production, I owe you $500 a day on your contract. What does that sound like to a homeowner? This guy's putting a guarantee on it. He's guaranteeing me that he'll complete it in 3 days, and if he does, he's giving me money back. So yeah, I wasn't really trying to be urgent and push you guys to be fast, but I also don't want you in my backyard for 6 months either, right?
time, quality, or money. It's that fun Venn diagram. Pick two. And a lot of homeowners, and I've found the wealthier clients understand the value of their time. They get that it is a finite resource and that it is honestly more valuable to them than money. And so they're willing to spend more for expedited process and experience. And there's value exchange in the terms of money. Whereas, the lower budget ones, and nothing against them, they just put different value on their time. And they would rather save money and Anyway, so actually, this is a great example of actually a kind of oxymoron of the thing. This client was a tech middle management, wasn't quite tech executive. He worked in the hardware sector of technology, though, so like microchips and processors and all that good stuff. And I want to paint a little picture here. So, right, so this is November, the job closes. December, we're getting it started. Homeowner wants to take care of their own plans. Plans that's a mess, right? There's a ton of RFIs out on our end, no response or two very limited responses from the architect, because they don't want to put any more time into it, because I'm sure they got penny pinched as well by this client. Homeowner submits it himself, tells us permit's ready to go, gives us permit number, says he has a permit card on site. We start the project. We get close to our first inspection. Turns out the permit was never pulled, right? And so that was issue number one, opening ourselves up to risk. And then for the life of the project, the homeowner had his own HVAC sub, his own cabinet vendor, that he told us would be cabinets to be on site. We're doing the install. Turns out they're not. We had to drive an hour and a half to go pick them up. That wasn't in our all of his finishes, plumbing fixtures, electrical fixtures. So this price, this is for a JADU garage conversion, and I'm going to share my screen here. And just off these first few lines, you're going to be able to see, like, oh no. So based off of these first few lines,
Not just for your viewers here, is this lump sum, cost plus? What are you?
Fixed price.
Fixed price.
Fixed price. Project was $125,779. The first line, just cost of goods sold, we're in the hole, right? And then it gets prettier. It gets prettier as you go. We lost $22,000, and this isn't net profit.
You didn't lose it. You paid him to have a nice bathroom, right?
Gross profit. In this project, we had, and the superintendent that was on this job is fired, and he deserved to be fired. We had over 50 undocumented change orders on this project. And so a lot of this labor here, this $51,000 in-house labor, which is astronomical for a type of project like this, was just free money. We moved a Tesla wall for free because the homeowner was going to do it himself type of thing, but didn't know how. And so our electrician just did it for him. 3 days of work. So it was just disgusting. So if you look at this, our operating costs per day, like it's about $1,200 a day split across if we're running 6 jobs. So if this job, takes 40 days times 40 by 1,200, and that's the operating cost loss on top of the negative gross profit. So, $60,000-$70,000 loss.
But this wasn't a client issue. This is a KHB issue.
100% it was. 100%. It was a client control issue. It was a management issue. It was an issue all around. This actually resulted in us firing a general manager, firing a superintendent, because there was lying involved too. Like their daily reports, there was lying, and we also caught a general manager like taking money under the table to do side work. So who knows if he actually got paid for doing some of this side work that we ended up paying the salaries and hourlies on top of what he was getting paid cash for. I don't know. I can't prove it, but that was going down as well. But yeah. So that is what happened in my experience when we agree. And so losing $70,000, like cash, like burning through that, like literally realizing that loss, it was enough of a stupid tax for me to say, we're never doing that again. If we don't have 100% control, I want no control. If I'm not fully accountable, I want no responsibility.
That's the better way to put the word, that if I'm not fully accountable to this project and I'm not devoted unconditionally to the time it's going to take to make it happen, I can't get you the outcome that's getting us those amazing positive Google reviews that you read about us. Period. And hands down, and people that don't see the value that takes to build that don't care. They don't want to see you win. They're there to get the best in it for them.
Well, and just the associated risk with taking on a project. Like if you're not having a healthy margin for not just warranty, because warranties will happen, but on the legal side as well. Like there's a ton that could, like, let's say that homeowner's HVAC contractor comes in there and does some faulty wiring, right? He does some chuck in the truck shit up in the attic, right? And it sparks out, causes a fire 2 months down the road. Who's getting blamed for that? The GC, me. I'm getting sued.
Yes.
Right? Like I'm getting someone attacking my bond or my insurance, not the HVAC guy that the homeowner, went with, because I'm fully accountable, but not fully responsible. And that's where like those need to be 100% accountable and responsible for the job site. Or it's just the risk benefit analysis doesn't pan out.
No, we sell certainty with a human being backing it and a warranty to stand it up. So back to the timing and the quality and the money, the three, right? Pick three. We dealt with that very recently. And the way that we've now transitioned some communication to help alleviate some of that stress is interesting, because in all three of those, there's really only one that we're willing to sacrifice. Because if I tell a homeowner, look, you know what, there's three things that we can control on your project, and the weather's not one of them. The timing that it takes to produce this project, the cost that's associated to it, and the quality that you're going to see once we're long gone. And if I have to have any of them adjust to be able to make this happen, the only one you're going to be willing to live with long term is it may take a little longer. But if I adjust that price, you're going to be upset with me. And if I like reduce the quality of the finishes, you're going to be upset with me. So when we have to go over on a project to just get it done right the first time, or maybe we've made a mistake and need to tear it apart, that's the way that we word that. And that's changed the process. And by doing that, you also get the opportunity to edify your team that's executing the work and let the homeowner recognize that those guys are busting their tail to complete it the right way the first time, and give you peace of mind to know that you have the right guy there and they're not leaving until it's done right.
Which is huge.
Yeah. I mean, when you hire somebody to do something for you, you're not just hiring someone to show up and do the work. You're hiring someone to manage somebody that's going to show up and do the work. You're hiring someone to keep track of all of the budget and the timeline. The scariest thing a homeowner could do would be to pay somebody that shows up in their house in a jalopy and it's draining oil in the driveway, and they're about to hand over $50,000 to a guy who can't even manage his own $50,000. Hasn't probably seen $50,000 in his own bank account in a long time. And they're expecting him to financially be able to manage that money through a project to get it to final completion with quality in a timeline that makes sense under budget. It's scary, right?
Literally in our client deck, like our presentation deck in the home, is pick two. And we had the little unicorn in the middle because there is a magical spot where a company hits the level of scale where they have the systems and the processes for a repeatable quality outcome, but they haven't adjusted their pricing models to catch up with the value that they're at and the burn rate that they're at, because they just don't know what they don't know yet, right? And you're going to find that, yeah, they don't know because maybe they don't have the reporting yet or whatever else. But there is like that unicorn stage where you can find a professional construction crew that has competitive timelines with industry standards and industry, like in that market, great quality of work, and their price is going to be cheaper. Mm-hmm. And I said, if you find that guy, you should hire them because they won't be there for long. They're going to go straight to timeline and quality of work. They're going to be a little bit more expensive because I need to have a reliable, quick timeline because I view money and the velocity of money differently than a chuck and a chuck does. Right? He looks at it like he's getting paid. I made $35 an hour on this job. That's great.
No,
you know what I mean? That's their mindset. We're running a operation. I view things as burn rate per day and opportunity cost per day, opportunity cost per crew, per man hour. There's a lot more that goes into that. So we need to hit our timelines, and they need to be as quick as possible to have the highest opportunity and profitability. And then the quality of work, because if we don't have great quality of work, if we sacrifice our quality of work, we're going to be eating a ton of money in rework and warranties and going back and touching things twice. And so we don't do that. But yeah, That's how we couch it typically with clients, and that's right on our iPads in the house. Like, have you? And that's right after we ask, are you getting other bids? Have you had any other consultations about this project? What did you learn from those? Right, and then we get to like, well, you're gonna have to make a decision, and you're gonna have to pick two. You're gonna have to pick great quality of work and a fast timeline, or quality work and low price. But someone's going to be here 3 times as long. YZ, right? You can mix it 2 out of 3 a couple different ways. We usually get, and sometimes the conversation stops right there, because when we get the person that says, like, it's a rental property, we're looking for the fastest timeline or the cheapest price, and we do not care about quality. That's not my game. Like, that's not the game we play.
I don't want my name on that.
There's also like principle, right? Like everything we touch, everything we do in our clients' homes, like it needs.
Well, it's risk. That's the thing. And when you talk to a homeowner that doesn't care about quality or, durability, that means that if they're willing to accept the risk and they'll sign off on the fact that they don't care about it, and I'm not providing any warranties, and I'm not putting my name on it, I'm just taking their check and moving on, that'd be completely different. But that's also not the business model we have. That doesn't stand for the mission statement we have. I mean, so there's plenty of other guys in town that will do that and not be in business for a few years, maybe a year or two, and they can't afford to continue.
So what of those 3 problems, price, time, quality, do you think DIYers are trying to accomplish? We're really tech forward here at KHB Construction, at Hometown, Next Day Fix, and we've just been scouring tools that are AI powered to help our team just squeeze out a little bit more of productivity and efficiency. What I really wanted to highlight was Prompt Sub. So Prompt Sub, it is a application that is AI powered that gives you the right prompt for the situation, and it's specific to contractors. And it really just structures inputs that are high quality. That way the AI can work off of that and give you a quality output. All right, so once you get into profile, you can get in here and put your company name, what type of trade you do, which, this is built for the trades. So it's specific to general contractors, plumbers, electricians, HVAC, which is really cool. It's not just like a one size fits every industry. It's specifically made for contractors. The city, state, years in business, license number, the services that you offer, job size, just all of your enrichment data of your company. And then when you're in prompts, there's a bunch of different filters here for what you're looking to do. So maybe it's you have a bunch of notes and you want to build out a bathroom remodel estimate. Well, you can take a picture of your notes, add it to ChatGPT, and then copy this prompt, and then it will have all the parameters. You're gonna basically make a professional estimate on the output. And then there's also areas like on the workflow side to where you can do like write a winning estimate, which this is like a pro feature to where there's a chain of commands. So first it'll be like organize your scope, paste your notes, your measurements, your pictures, whatever into there. Once you get this output, you go to step 2, and then you give it this prompt, and this refines it and takes it to the next step. And then step 3, plan the follow-up prompt. And so it's a full workflow command where it's a controlled prompt. You can expect the same outcome every single time, project to project, and you can have consistency. Check out Prompt Sub if you're a contractor. It's gonna 10x your quality and consistency. $9.99 a month for the starter, $19.99 a month if you want like all the workflows and all the big stuff. So if you're a contractor looking to adopt AI, or if you're looking to implement AI in your business, I would highly recommend starting off with Prompt Sub. Go sign up today at promptsub.com.
By taking the project on themselves.
Yeah, or
Price.
trying to farm out.
Price.
Mostly price.
Price, yeah. So our number one objection, price. And when I talk about it in our office about, our price objections that we do get, we are significantly more expensive. Sometimes 20, sometimes 30% more expensive than the other guys in town. And number of reasons why. Primarily, the biggest reason why is that you get dedicated production management. which the other companies that are around don't have a PM or a superintendent. They have a crew and a crew lead, and the PM never makes his way out to the job sites to actually communicate with the homeowner. The deck consultant that sold the deck makes its way out there on a couple of occasions to just check on the status of it, but it's the PM's responsibility to make sure the job gets communicated and maintained throughout production. But you got number of things we do differently. Beyond that, then there's all of the pre-planning and pre-production stuff that happens on our end, on the front end. When we talk about using a trades partner on your project, these aren't just another third party we just scalped off the road and said, "Hey man, you want to build a deck today? I realize you're not busy. Come build this one for us. Give me the cheapest price you have." And I'm not just like, nickel and diming them and pushing a thumb on them. These are crews that I've maintained to keep on year round, that we're building extremely high end custom homes and renovation projects on their own. But what they identified in their business model is that they failed at the production management side of things. They failed at the actual marketing side of things, the sales side of things. They don't know how to sequence the job properly. So they're relying on us for a lot of that. And all they bring to the table is just the labor and the ability to execute the job site with cleanliness on their end. We supply everything, and it's a fair trade-off because it keeps them very busy. And some of them have grown from 1 crew to 5 crews. So to teach a homeowner that would take a long time. There's a vetting process. There is a lot of compliance that we make sure we maintain on our side. When a crew accepts a project, they come in our office, they sign off on a purchase order, they've agreed to take ownership of that project. They do a takeoff with our takeoff, and the project manager assigned to the job. And if the takeoff's different, well, don't accept the job if you're considering the fact that it's got less product on our takeoff than you think it needs, make the adjustment and commit to that. Because as soon as you commit, the material delivers, and we go out there and you're short 2x12s, I'm going to assume you either misappropriated them in the framing or you stole. But if that's the case, you're going to go buy it on your dime. So it is a very strong master agreement. And the teams that we work with have really come to the table and stepped it up because they take ownership of the jobs. They run them just like they would their own project. They're the face of Riverview. A lot of them respect and value
we've
that.
been.
Go ahead.
So I have a few questions. Like in our world, because you're in a way a general contractor of decks, right? You're general managing and production of decks, which there's multiple trades in decks. Where like on our end, most of the time DIYers are looking to play general contractor. Where they're calling the demo guys, and then the framer, and then the electrical and plumbing and mechanical, and they're managing all the subs, right? Where on like any given full home renovation, 15 plus subcontractors are paraded.
My
through that
question
home.
to that guy would be this: how many hours do you work throughout the week at your day-to-day career?
What's your job? Yeah,
And I'm
for
not
real.
trying to pick on him, but what I'm asking is, are you going to be available to meet with these people? And because they've never done work for you, they don't trust you. These subcontractors nowadays, you have to have done work with them back to back to back on a few jobs to build a
Well,
real relationship.
and even then, my segue on that was going to be change orders.
Yes.
Like they are flying blind. They do not. They might get all their bids back from their individual subs and say, "I could do this 40% cheaper." Right, but all those subs, like during construction, are just gonna bend you over. Like you're gonna get change
There's
order
3 or
after
4
change
guys
order
we
after
compete
change
with.
order. Yeah,
Just like
which
that.
is like the thing of this going back to super tax. Like homeowners have done this. This might be your first time doing this. We've done thousands. Like we've been in these situations, and which is why we put a no change order guarantee on our non-structural projects.
Same.
But even then, like we had a project where fixed price contract or subcontract was executed with an electrical trade partner, and into the project buttons up. We've made our payments, and he's doing the finish. He's installing the fixtures. We get an email saying, "Hey, some of the counts changed during construction from what was on the plans to what we actually installed, and we're gonna have to kind of reconcile that. And there's gonna be a change order of added cost in our final invoice." And for me, right? I'm like, well, no, there's not, right? Like, but if that was just a homeowner, they just have to take it, right? But for me, like, I have a trade partner agreement that explicitly states if any changes of scope of work are made on this job site, it has to be executed and signed by the general and the trade partner and agreed upon before proceeding with that work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like typical change order statute. That wasn't done, right? So I'm not paying shit.
Right.
You know, I'm not giving you another dime that wasn't on your original contract that we approved and put into our contract in the prime. Like, it's not happening.
That's why we have a contract. It's the playbook.
At what point, yeah, like if we're not going to follow the processes and contracts and rules we laid out of our rules of engagement, what are we doing? Right. And this is the argument I've been in, even with homeowners directly, where they want to change something on the job site. Right. And like in our contract is pretty thorough. And we go and I say, this is how we execute this. And we will have a markup on change orders. Actually, if the homeowner initiates something, that per day burden that is getting added to our project is accounted for. It has to be, right? We're not going to just do something at cost for you and lose 2 days of operation costs. Like, that's not going to happen. And we've gotten in arguments about that as well, to where, once again, homeowners aren't giving the trade partner their contract, right? Because they have no authority to contract with that trade partner, and that trade partner will probably walk away. You're signing whatever that trade partner gives you, which is going to say, due on receipt, don't bitch, don't moan, don't complain. I can sign change orders off if the scope of work changes or if costs increase, and you have to pay that bill, and you're at the mercy of that trade partner that you've never worked with before. Never.
Right.
And that's a risk that I don't think DIYers are really aware of when they're trying to GC their own project, whether it's a deck or a kitchen remodel or whatever else. Like, even if it was a deck, like, you're going to go hire a handyman to pour your footings, and then like a carpenter off of Craigslist to do the frame out, and then hire a painter to stain or finish or do whatever you're doing. Like that, that's 3 or 4 different companies you're dealing with that have 3 or 4 different operations of how they run their businesses. Good luck.
So, it really comes down to when you start talking to homeowners that think they can DIY on their most expensive investment. You ask them stuff, questions. They have to come to the realization themselves. You can't explain it to them. If you try to tell and educate a homeowner why that's a stupid idea, they're going to look at you and shake their head and say, "But my daddy did it, and when he sold his house, he had $700,000 in equity, and that's why he's retired. So my daddy did it. It works." Okay. But the problem is your dad got lucky, because that doesn't always happen that way. My first flip home, upside down, 250 grand. Easy. Learning lesson right away. So when you start thinking about detail and you start thinking about time and money and, quality, do you take your steak to the steakhouse with you and ask them to cook it? I got a few Coors Lights in the truck. Can I just bring them in here? By the way, you're back there cooking that
Well,
steak
and you
for me.
know what? If
While
you
you're
do,
at it,
there's
can you do this?
$100 corking fee, right?
Yes.
Sure, you can bring your own bottle of wine, but we're charging $100 to open it.
To open it? I'll open it. Give me that bottle opener.
I always think of, like, when we're going to a $2-3 million home and the homeowner wants to DIY something, I'm like, if you had a Ferrari and you had to get an oil change, right? Like, are you going to do the oil change yourself? No, you're taking it you have to take it to the specialist. Like, why would you want to hacksaw this $3 million home? And it's just, there's just no outcome.
Immediate gratification.
Ends with anyone happy.
Immediate gratification. It realizes on their bank account right now. The long-term effects of it have not played in, and they don't know what that pain looks like yet. We, as contractors, it's our responsibility to educate them in a way that helps them come to the realization that they're going to hit a brick wall, and they may even lose a spouse over this. But they don't know that yet.
Number one cause of divorce, home renovations.
Oh, 100%, dude.
It is. It's the number one cause.
I want to say I can attest.
Yeah, I've seen some shit on job sites where husband and wife are just at it. And I do think, the best salesperson can just ask a great question and shut up. And especially if you have both, which you should, both decision makers there, husband and wife, partner. We're in California, so dude and dude, I don't know, whatever happens. But asking a great question and then letting them basically fight about the ideal outcome, and you're just sitting there getting informed the whole
It
time.
tells
You're
you a
getting
great
all the
story.
leverage.
Tells you a great story. And the best thing about it is when the wife is not on board with the husband taking on the DIY portion of it, and she doesn't say it and come right out with it, but yet she's objecting to the fact that he can't do all this work, then you
Hmm.
pause and say, you know, just out of curiosity, Mary, if your husband wasn't in the picture, what would you be doing going forward from this point forward? And she's going to now voice exactly what she wanted to say that she didn't. It's, we are not taking on the demo because I don't know what that's going to look like and I really don't want to find out. He's a full-time neuroscientist, right? Like, doesn't have any right to be sitting here with a sledgehammer taking out the floor in
Pour
our
a
living
little
room or
gasoline
whatever.
on your fire. Like if you two weren't married, which that might
Hmm.
happen after this, if you do it
Yeah.
yourself,
Ooh.
what would you want to do in your home?
Yeah.
Fight, go for it.
Fight.
We
Yeah.
actually had one husband and wife. Husband is just a high agency type of guy, CFO, executive level at a very large company. Does quite well for themselves. You know, a couple $1 million home in the country, lots of acreage, pool, three boys. You know, they have what most would call the American dream. Well, he's up for promotion to succeed the current CEO, and he's getting promoted in the next, I don't know, 6 to 18 months or so, whenever that CEO steps down and retires. And so they're going back and forth about spending $750 to $1 million or 1.25 to $1.5 million on their renovation, which you know there's a big swing of scope depending on what we do there. And we had a meeting in person. Husband and wife were talking, going back and forth. He's very pragmatic, you know, educated, and he's been in those types of conversations before. So, which is refreshing talking to people like that. They're not, you know, skirtish about the money side of it. They know it costs money. I get a call from the wife after the meeting, right? When I'm basically like, okay, what kind of, because design package ranges from 12,000 to 25,000. Like, what do we want to do here? The 25,000 is the Taj Mahal full CD set, renders the whole nine. She's and she spills like her husband was very close-lipped during the meeting. Didn't really give a lot of context around the money decisions of like internal discussions where she just like lets it all out. She's like, basically, he's going to be CEO. We're going to have a ton of more money coming up in the near future. And it's my decision if I want to spend $1 million or $1.5 million. And if we want to spend 1.5, we have to wait X amount of time. If we want to spend one, we have to spend this amount of time to where like just laid it out on the table, which is kind of the funny when you have, you know, husband and wife, because the wife is typically the driver of costs historically in our situations. And the husband is usually the brakes, kind of pumping the brakes, like, hey, let's stop this scope creep. We don't need, you know, a $10,000 sink type of thing.
Hmm.
And just by asking great questions and just listening, man, you can get people to exploit the true situation behind what they're saying. And long story short, we're going to do the $1.5 million project at the end of the day because that's what she
Right.
wants. Yeah, and she's going to get what she wants. And all it took was a few conversations, a few great questions, and then getting the husband and wife to hash it out.
Hash it out. That takes time. I mean, honestly, that's one of the reasons why we do design build on some of the larger projects because
You have to.
you have to slow it down. If you try to go in there and, you know, I won't even use the word one call close because we have taken one call close to another level that is like not necessarily far from one call close, but um, it's one of those where, hang on a second, a message here. It's one of those where it's like, if it makes sense to close you today, it's probably not a good fit. Because a lot of those types of projects that are just in and out, wham bam, I've done a lot of them. My entire first 2 years of building were contracted off of one call closes. What we've found is that you have scope creep.
Mm-hmm.
You have inappropriate scope where you didn't get the detail on the first visit, and then the second and third visit, there was still stuff that you missed, which could have been done better if you slow it down. And now we're finding that because we did that, we changed the market. There are other companies that are trying to go in and hustle people, and it's slimy. And so our one call is completely different now. But beyond that, though, it's designed to create an experience that they'll remember at the end of the day when we walk out the door, that they'll shake our hand and value what we did for them, and as opposed to, you often see one or two little things go sideways, a change order here, a little bit more there on something they weren't expecting. Now all of a sudden you're really taking their vacation fund. They're, it's causing issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
um and it then, easily turns into, um they're upset. They don't want to continue to talk to you. The communication starts breaking down. The tail end of the job doesn't go well. There is no final walkthrough that's done professionally, or if there is, it's one of the two parties that were originally in the relationship. The wife's no longer comfortable talking to the contractor. Or the husband's no longer. It's always something, and we've been there. We've done that where there wasn't anything we could do. We tried effectively to proactively communicate. We tried everything, and it just wasn't possible. And so now you don't get a positive review. You don't get a satisfied client. You don't get a referral. You don't get, really the good feeling of like, we did something great. It
Mm-hmm.
just feels like a job.
Dude, I have a funny one for you. That happened, but we sniffed it out before. Exactly what you're talking about. Being design build and just taking the time to go through the process to get all the important information before we start making decisions and moving forward with the project. We had a client, I believe I posted it in our CRM. Let me see here. Yeah, here we go. So I'll share with you this text. And producer Dave, you're gonna have to shut down the uh, phone number here. But I've been calling him, following up with this guy, right? And I was like, hey, when works for a call? It's too late. I'm like, too late. It's 5 o'clock. I'm like, too late for a call. He's like, more than 1 month I wait for you guys. Could not get quote. And I won't say ethnicity or anything, but not the ideal candidate. And then think it should be same day service and
Cheap.
negotiable on price. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's and
Your
so
price
I'm like,
is 25% high. I'm going to
in
negotiate you down.
context of all this, like our estimator has been sending him emails. I've been sending him emails. I've been keeping him in the loop of where we're at. And I'm like, look, the plans were not detailed enough for a reliable quote. We have been contacting your architect to no response for RFIs. We cannot just make up a number. if your architect answers our questions, we can finish our bid in 1 day. Like we got everything ready. It's just I'm not going to tell you.
What kind of
This is
client is
going to
this? This
be.
is a resident that's a primary
No,
residence, or is
this was
this
a
a,
commercial. So
uh,
we started our commercial division last year, and I'm spearheading that, all the relationships of that. And this was a commercial. This was a yogurt mill that was going to be built out, like a
not
yogurt
good.
shop. Yeah. So like things like that, to where truthfully, I'm glad that it went there and we didn't just take a shortcut and throw a price on a piece of paper. And let's say he moved forward, right? And then we get our RFI answered in construction, and it turns out to be a $40,000 change order.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to ruin the relationship, just
Yeah.
as much as that text saying like, "Hey, I'm not just going to give you a price," right? That like if you want this done professionally, that's not how this works. And expectations set, on the phone, first phone call. Here's our process. This is how things work. Is that okay, right? And then when we meet on site, reaffirming our process and asking great questions, seeing what's important to them, which I knew time was important to this client. Like he wanted it done as fast as possible. But he took
But
the DIY route. He went with a freaking home designer that has
right.
no business drawing commercial plans to design this full commercial build out of a yogurt mill out of a shell, you
Yeah,
know.
that's a
And
job I
so,
would charge more on just because stupid tax is being paid by them, and I'm going to continue to make more. If they want to hire
yeah.
us, then if I,
Well,
and that's it. Like I tread lightly on that in the way of profit margins, but at the same time, you're going to make my job a living nightmare. You're going to have problems that are going to slow the entire production timeline down because of your uneducated approach. And all the conversations you have, whether they're urgent or not, with this guy to get us answers, may or may not be as fast as we need them.
Well, the irony of it is, this individual is trying to DIY his construction process. Really, uh, He got a few other bids before us, too expensive. Not a complete scope of work they gave us. And then I get the plans. I'm like, well, I get it, right? Like if I was just to throw a price out there, like let's say my base cost is, $250 and I'm running this at a $400K top line, I'm probably going to send it at $450, $475 because I just don't know what I don't know. And I'm not going to eat a stupid.
I don't want it that bad enough. Yeah. Well, and
if
I
your
mean,
architect won't even reach out, like what does that say how the construction project is going to go? If I can't even get an answer to an email in a week, or what happens when something happens on site and we need a decision that day?
when clients tell our staff we want to get multiple quotes or bids, the way that objection is handled is really simple. I totally understand why you would think that's necessary, and you know where that actually came from. The idea of getting multiple bids, and at that point, most people aren't going to have a real clear answer for you. They're going to basically say, no. I mean, my dad used to recommend that to make sure we get the right price, and we see some ideas. We really just want for people to come out here and give us their opinions because they do it professionally. Maybe we're thinking of the wrong scope here, and then someone could nudge us in a different direction. And that's when you can then corner them and say, that's fine, but that is not bidding or doing quotes. And so in the commercial side of things, where that became a thing and why people do bid multiple trades partners on the same project is because they've already identified a full scope. They've already got the selections. Yes, they've already got the concept generated. They've already got the RFP built, and it's a rate for proposal. Right? They're looking for proposal on that. So everyone's getting sent that bid packet, and everyone's bidding on the exact scenario. But what you're telling me as a homeowner here is that you have like conceptual ideas, but there's nothing really scoped out. And so you need a professional that's done this a time or two before to help you through the scope, which also helps build the milestone events and the critical pathway as to how this all gets done. And so before we can get to that, we have to develop that. And in order to do that, you're going to pay somebody. Like no one's going to do it for free. So we can provide you that. Here's the cost of it. And then if you decide we're not a good fit at the long term down the road, then take this to anybody else and they can price it that way for you. But
Yeah,
that's how we start.
that's exactly how we start as well. On our first initial consult, I am letting them know everything we talk about is pixie dust until it is a finalized set of plans with finished schedules and approved upon scope of work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get your 2 or 3 bids, great, as long as everyone's bidding the same true north.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can come in here and say, yeah, I could do this kitchen for 30 grand, right? And there is a reality where I could do this kitchen for 30 grand. But what you're telling me is really 90. But I'm not going to play the game to race to the bottom and get you at 30. And then when we get through the design process, it's really at 90 and then no one's happy. Right. And I tell them just like that too. I was like, I could tell you 30 if that's what you really want. Here's what that would entail. But what you're telling me is more like 90 to 110. And we really need to get into design to figure out if that's what we want to do. You know? But once again, DIYers, man, they just don't know. Because especially when you're bringing in individual trade partners into a project who aren't specialists in that given aspect of construction. You're bringing in an electrician, right? He might do commercial, industrial. He might be doing data center wire ups. And then you're calling for your kitchen remodel, right? Might be overqualified in some aspects of the job, but also doesn't have the familiarity of that specific process in a kitchen. So he's going to be giving you a price that then, depending on how you schedule the plumber and HVAC and your drywaller, might intercede with him. And he doesn't know any better to tell you, hey, don't bring in X, Y, and Z until this date, right? And then you get a change order. And then that happens on every single trade, right? Like every single one of them is going to complain about working on top of the next guy. And they're not going to be a cohesive team because they weren't the author. They're just a publisher of a chapter of the book. They don't have the full book. They don't have the full picture of what you're actually trying to accomplish in this remodel. Whereas like a design build structure is the author of every single chapter and the publisher of the book as well. And is a really cohesive approach to anything aside from like a fence repair. You know what I mean? Like there are things in your home, like that's why we started Next Day Fix. There are small tasks in the home that don't really need 3 weeks of planning, or a full design. There's still a sequence. Yeah, there's still sequencing to get things done. But any sort of remodel, anything you're adding to your home or modifying in your home that I would say takes longer than 3 days needs a plan. It needs a critical path. It needs sequencing of construction to make sure that 3 days doesn't turn into 13. You know, happens.
It does. And that's when, from a contractor's perspective, the way that we want to look at the partnership, I need a couple things for a project to go well, right? I need a great contract. I need a clear scope of work. And then I need a partner that will basically be the banker, the funding partner. Because if they aren't going to fund it, and this is the kind of conversation I have, and maybe you do too, but we aren't going to fund your project. I'm going to collect money before I start a phase. It's not I do the work, then I get paid. It's you pay me and we start doing the process to get the work going.
I wish that's how California was.
It can be. And I'm happy to share with you how it's possible.
Share with me how, because right now it is work then pay, and unless our design retainer and our consultation fees are separate from construction, but once we commence construction, it is work then pay.
You had planning involved to get the work started, right?
Yes,
Why are you not charging for that?
we are. That's in the
Okay.
consultation side. Yeah.
That's the admin side of it. The cost of the field labor, um, associate it to cost. The markup's what you're paying for on the front end. You're not paying for the labor. The labor will get paid for once we show up. But I mean, in our case, we're technically allowed to carry 30% as a deposit in the state of Tennessee. All right. That's fine. I collect 30%. I get the maximum when we sign the agreement. The second I show up to your house to start demo, I'm collecting another 30%.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done anything. I mean, I have. We've built
Yeah,
plans,
there's
we've
been
engineered
admin and
them,
back end.
we've
Yeah.
pre-planned, we've done takeoffs, we've done drafting. My admin sent for permits. We've communicated back and forth on HOA documents to get you approved. So there's a lot of that stuff, but it's not like you're seeing stuff come together on your project at home. So 30%. So I'm 60% in it before you start seeing actual work. And then once the work starts, like the demo is a day or two, and then a deck goes up. And once the framing's in, just before the decking goes down, that's another 30%. And then the only thing that we aren't getting paid for on the front end, which is the 10% on the tail end, is at final completion. But more often than not, these are funded projects that are financed. I'm
Yeah.
requesting that money way before we do a walkthrough because it takes sometimes 3 to 5 days for it to transact. So, man, I don't know.
Yeah, you're
That's
getting funded. Well,
so
that's
in your
that's
case, if you're the bank, you should be charging interest on the fact that you're floating the money because
for
you're not
real.
supposed to be. In my case, I don't think that the
For real.
contractor should be the bank unless you're charging for it.
No, the
Um,
contracting, the California specific
and that's, I
contracting
think,
laws
homeowners get hung up on the
is
fact that
one sided.
it takes money to build these, and if you're going to help it through the process, you should get compensated for that. It's no
I
different than a car dealership charging you, fees to do certain things in
I
advance to
feel
carry
there's
the note for you.
two ways to go about it, and the first way is always staying overbilled because I always want the leverage. And once again, it's no secret we are a for-profit company. There's no secret that there is a cost associated with our services. And we, as a company in a free world, should be able to charge whatever we want to charge. That's in a mutual schedule of values agreement with our client, whether that's $1,000 deposit or a $50,000 deposit, in my opinion, depending on the job size. In California, it's $1,000 max, unless it's like a design retainer or consultation fees and stuff like that. The second way I would, and this is more commercial, that I would only entertain getting paid is if it's cost plus and it's a percentage of hours completed per cost code, and there's an actual tangible number there that could be
Why don't you
reconciled
start
weekly.
another
That's a lot
LLC
of work.
and start an LLC and sub the work to yourself? And the LLC is basically the design company that's subbing the work to the third party back to yourself. That's the skirt around that $1,000
So
deposit pretty easily.
there's actually a big thing about that in California where designers who aren't licensed, because like an architect that is licensed can project manage a project and they don't need a contractor's license to do so. The issue in California right now is a lot of um, Etsy designers, if you will, like just off the couch, I can be a designer type chicks are actively managing multi six figure, seven figure home renovations with no license and and really no credential or experience to do so. Um, and then they're taking a fee on top of that. And so
Same.
they're playing the
That's
bank,
happening
right?
here
Where in
for
California,
real
that's
estate people
like
too.
real estate flips. That's a big one too. Just because you have a real estate license, you took a test that says you can sell a house, doesn't mean you can go general contract a house. Unless it's your own property. If it's your own property, you can do what you want. But that's a big thing over here with designers is they're playing general contractor and making a percentage off the top line. With and it's a
Well, and
game
then they're
I
telling
wouldn't
the
want to.
general contractor what cabinet to use because they get a kickback on the cabinets.
Yes, exactly. That's the game too. And I don't want to be a part of that or try to skirt it. It's really like for us, there's cash flow issues inherently with the way we have to start projects. And it just really takes another layer of um,
But if you're
not
only allowed to collect a
education,
thousand
but
dollar deposit, what does that $1,000 do?
nothing. Nothing.
Exactly.
And then in our
So,
contract, we have a 15% liquidation
what
clause
are
if they
you
cancel.
responsible to do for that $1,000 though, in exchange
Oh,
for giving?
no. So that $1,000 exchanging hands is the handshake that will buy all of their materials, right? But we can't bill for those materials until they show up on site. So this is a real example of what happens every month here when we sell projects. We get $1,000 deposit. Our finishes are 50K, right? For this kitchen or whatever, between slabs, cabinet deposits. And that's the other thing too. Our subcontractors for like cabinets, they're selling a good. It's not the service yet, right? So they're charging 50% for their cabinets. So we're buying everything up front, right? So we're 50K in the hole. And then
Storing it, warehousing it.
legally, yeah, storing it. Legally, we can't charge until work commences on site. Now, there's a couple gray areas in how it's interpreted. Like as soon as the products are purchased and we have receipt of purchase, some attorneys I've talked to say, yeah, you can invoice. If you've already paid for it, you're not net 30 to your client as their bank. Like you can invoice as soon as money changes. But if we were to get sued, right, and we charged 30% of the contract total before the job started as a material deposit, but we didn't, but let's say our shop manager forgot to order, 10 grand worth of that material. Like we would be held liable for that. Like we would be in the wrong, even though we're carrying all the risk of storing that product, delivering that product, installing that product, in everything, we get hit. So, and that's the double side sword of that no markup on materials is we aren't charging a markup. Therefore, technically, whatever we're charging is across the table. So there's no real gross profit included in that payment, right? So it's a big not my money payment is what we call it. It's like that goes into the project account and that is separate from operating funds. But when you get tight on cash flow, like there has been times where you have to just do what you got to do because the accounts receivable and contract is great, but we can't touch it because it's in a permitting phase for 6 weeks, right? Or 6 to 16 weeks, depending on what county you're in, because permitting in California is very tough as well. So there's a lot of headwinds financially as being a contractor in California.
There's got to be a third party banker listening to this at some point that's going to call you and say you're doing this wrong because I can try.
I hope
I
so.
can promise you That is not how businesses stay afloat and cash flow hundreds of thousands of dollars monthly.
Dude, there was a contractor that wouldn't charge a dollar aside from the $1,000 deposit, wouldn't charge a dollar during construction till the job was done. He would bankroll their full project. And when I heard that, I was like, that person's a psychopath. Like, that's the stupidest thing I've
Well,
heard.
hold on a
That you
second.
would
Slow
cash
down,
flow
because I
someone's
mean
full
that's the
kitchen.
dream. That is the
Well,
dream, but you don't do that bootstrapping your way to a $50 million company by not having cash flow constraints. You don't do that until you're probably able to be the bank. And so
yeah.
once you've, let's say, created enough cash flow in your organization and you've got a runway of 6 months emergency fund to cover overhead, and you're comfortable floating 50, $60,000 of materials each job, and you're going to stick it on an American Express and make some points or whatever, go for it. I totally am cool with that. But when you're still building, scaling, and cash flow is not great, that's not good. And we use funding partners like crazy because that takes out a lot of that headache. Now, the homeowner's not out any money. Technically, the contract doesn't say much about it other than this the draw schedule. And I'm reaching out to the funding partner to send us the money. I mean, 90% of our projects have the ability to all have a funding partner. 12 months interest free, 18-month interest free. I mean, in their soft credit pull, 680 or better, they get a baller rate on the fixed ones. I can even do a home equity line. So, and it doesn't have any appraisals necessary. And I can close in 5 days and I can go up to 450,000. So,
Who
yeah,
you
they
getting
can
that
go to their
much
bank.
for 450?
Who or how much?
No, you can get up to 450. What lender?
Foundation. Foundation.
Because I'm mostly using Slice, and that's a cap of 150.
If you're using
Um,
Slice directly, it is a unique relationship. You're probably not getting the advantage of it. If you're using it through a party that's actually funneling a lot of business through it, you get access to the
well,
competitive rates.
it's Improvi.
Yeah, so you're using Chris. So Chris can get you into the foundation. It is his secured lending loan. And for anyone listening to this, here's a plug for Chris Scoville,
He's
Improvify.
great. Yeah,
Chris knows his stuff, man. Been in commercial lending for a long time, knows a lot about home improvement funding, and has a really good weekly Tuesday tech call where they go over teaching, training, coaching your team how to use financing, funding options. I just let the cat out of the bag to anyone listening to this who wants to double, literally double. I mean, if you want to grow fast, learn how to use other people's money and teach your homeowners how to use other people's money so that perfect example, someone's got a paycheck coming through, they've got 20,000 saved up, they want a deck, it's 60,000. They don't have the money right now, but they know for sure there's a commission check coming within the next 6 to 8 months. It's probably going to be a month and a half before I start your project. You won't have any obligation to pay me because the bank will do all the deposit money. There's 90 days deferment from the time frame I complete your project. So there's 3 months free, and then the 12 months. So you just pay the minimum monthly, and you get zero interest. I mean, anyone with any money mindset understands that that's the way to buy in this day and age. Even if you have the cash sitting in your account, use the other, other people's money, right? So I think it's the smartest way to transition and give people less stress in the transaction when they know they're not having to fork out all this cash and they're not hemorrhaging big progress payments as you're making phase headway on their project. Just it gives them comfort and knowing, all right, well, we still don't owe anything yet. We get to see this whole thing come to completion, and we're going to be satisfied before we're actually putting dollars into it. Now they can't back out once they've signed the agreement at that point, but we can't leave either until they're
yeah,
satisfied. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, 100%. I just emailed Chris. I love that.
Good.
That's
Yeah,
gonna
I
be a
mean, we
game changer
have.
because our average job size is, 300,000, and it's, with a lot of the slice loans, they go, they have a couple good same as cash, no options, and a lot of our
Well, and
clients
then
use them as a bridge loan, but
on the app, there's your slice. there's your Improvify Secured, there's your Finney Funding. Finney Funding basically is a waterfall brokerage. You're going to see um, a multitude of fintech companies that provide funding in that app, that option. That is your buy deeper program. So Slice works in a number of ways for us. It's, going to help the client that's cost sensitive, but is comfortable with either a, lower interest term type of, monthly payment, when you can get them to tell you what they'd be comfortable with paying monthly. So for instance, you take your car to trade it in, they ask you what's your payment. You tell them, I could potentially put another $150 a month on top of this payment I'm making now. So now they're never going to own the car. Nobody ever owns the car, right? I mean, people used to think that was a thing. It's like boats. People won't ever own these $150,000, $200,000 wakeboard boats. They borrow them. Why do you think the bank has a teller window in a drive-through? So they can see all the cars they own. Duh. But homes are the same thing. And people don't ever own them like that. And when they go to invest in them, if they get the HELOC, it's a safety net, whether they use it or not, to get pre-funded on, because it's going to happen. Someday you're going to need a roof.
For whatever reason, The Big Short just popped in my head.
Yeah.
I'm getting major '08 vibes right now. We're doomed. All right, well, I got to button it up, brother. Well, that was a good one.
That's awesome.
We stayed on
That
track.
was a good topic. I think we had a lot to talk about there, and hopefully the listeners at this point will start to see some value in some of that.
Yeah, no, I think it was a good topic. And yeah, if you got any value out of this, if you thought it was a good conversation, like, share, comment, subscribe, give this to a contractor buddy, give this to a homeowner who's thinking of remodeling, and let them just hear from firsthand experience what happens.
Kind of like Andy Frisella's podcast. Don't be a
don't be a hoe,
but don't be a homeowner.
Yeah. Don't DIY.
Don't DIY. Call a contractor.
Yeah, grow some balls and buy. That could be our tagline.
Don't. What was it?
Don't DIY. Grab some balls and buy.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, brother. I'll see you next week.
Optimize a plan. If you building for tomorrow, then you building like a man. AIS, we don't follow the trend. We said it, reset it.